Hi everyone, we're going to begin studying or reading the book of Colossians. And so to help you out as you go through and read the book of Colossians, I'm going to have another set of videos for you to help you kind of understand what you've been reading or what you're reading as you go through the book of Colossians. This introduction video will be kind of a quick video just to give you an idea of who wrote the book, why it was written, where it was written from, who the audience was, and some general ideals. Most everyone agrees that Paul is the author of the book. It says Paul introduces himself at the beginning of the book. We also see Timothy mentioned there. I believe Timothy was the scribe. I believe Paul was the one that wrote all the content. He gave all the content, and Timothy scribed all that, wrote it down for the church at Colossae there. And so we see him writing, we see Paul writing there. As he was writing this, he was in prison, just like he was in prison when he wrote the book of Philippians that we have previously studied. And so we see him writing this book from prison. Like most of his letters, like most of the books in the New Testament that Paul wrote, there is an overarching theme to this book. In my opinion, that theme is the deity of Christ or the greatness of Jesus Christ. We see that being a theme throughout this book. The church there faced a threat. There was some false teachings going on in the church. There was a lot of Gentiles there. There were a lot of Jews there. The town of Colossae was at one time a huge town. Now it kind of dwindled down in size. It was no longer the major thoroughfare and trade place that it had been in the past. So when Paul was writing this letter, it was a mix of Gentiles, a mix of Jews, and there was a lot of false teachings going on there. Obviously, one of the false teachings that was going on was that Christ alone was not sufficient for salvation. This seems to be one of the things that was being taught. One of the false teachings there was that you needed more than Jesus Christ to teach. So we see here Paul telling the Colossians the true identity of Jesus Christ. He was more than that. You'll see that he talks about him being the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. As we go through this, you'll see him mention that he has all the fullness of deity that dwells in the bodily form. So he was God in flesh. He was putting Jesus as a deity. He was showing them who Jesus Christ truly is. And so as you read through this book, as you read through it, you're going to see Paul address who Jesus is and why it's so important for us to understand the deity of Jesus Christ as we read through this book and as we study this book. And so don't get confused with a lot of the language you'll see here. Don't get confused with a lot of the stuff that's going on. It's actually pretty simple as we start reading it. But the biggest thing to know about this is that Jesus Christ was God. He is God in the flesh. And we're going to study that and we're going to see that as we go through this book. So hopefully this book still has a lot of information for you today. We still live in a world today where people try to take a little bit of the Bible and a little bit of their own beliefs and they mix it together and make up their own religion. Or we live in a world today where science tells us that we don't need God or that God doesn't exist, that they can do everything through God. We live in a world today where Jesus is sometimes considered a myth or just a good teacher. And so this book really brings out a lot of the things that you and I still need to know today about the fact that Jesus Christ was and is the Son of God. He was a deity. He was the only one who could die for our salvation. And so we're going to see that throughout this book, and we're going to see that being the main theme. There are some other themes that we can go through and see. We're going to see some themes in prayer. We're going to see some themes in gratitude and faith and things like that. But biggest thing we're going to see here is that one of the best ways to battle false teaching is just to confront it with the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ, who He is and what He has done. Not what we as men have done, but what Jesus Christ has done for us all. So I hope you enjoy this book. Go ahead, grab your Bible, begin reading chapter 1. In the next video, we'll look at the first few verses of chapter 1 and begin to see why Paul had to write this and some of the things that he wants to say to them.